Welcome back, everybody, to the Industrial Insights Podcast. We have Adrian Betts of Xpandur. Adrian and LinkedIn. Gosh, once you see Adrian's LinkedIn, you realize the breadth of experience, and I love it. So I had to reach out and spend some time with you just to learn more. And I feel like there's a lot of value that you provide first, which I really appreciate. That helps us all learn and then to learn more about your experience. So I appreciate you being here today, Adrian, and spending some time with me and with the audience.
Thanks for having me, Justin. I'm excited to be here as always. And, let's just go right into it. The reason the company is called Xpandur is because we want to expand your operational capabilities. So usually if my background's been with warehouses, last mile delivery stations, distribution centers, and fulfillment centers. And we work with them to get more throughput out of their warehouses using their existing hours.
Yeah. And you're on site right now. We're witnessing it live. So, what would be the general nature of what you're working on at this moment?
So it's herding cats at scale. So we have probably in the last 3 months recently onboarded three clients that have an existing footprint. They are in the high eight, if not mid nine figure range as far as ARR. So supporting a 3PL that has these clients under the same roof. And we're bringing in a few dozen managers very quickly and several hundred employees within a few weeks. And it is November. We are still bringing in people right now. And it's all about figuring out the building block of a big warehouse. So right now we have 30 managers and 500 employees. Like I said, it's a 17 to 1 ratio. Once Justin gets his 17 people and Adrian gets his 17 people and the other 28 managers get their 17 people, okay, are you good? Yes or no? Why not? What is it? Okay, what do you need? Let's get it to you. When will you be okay? And then you do that 29 more times, and you do that several times a day. And really it's like flying a plane or driving a car, right? It's a lot of small inputs, a little to the right, a little to the left, but you
Yes.
don't just hold it center.
Yes, never. You got analogies for days, Adrian. I love it. It's the best. It helps people learn. So, it makes a difference.
Well, it
What
does.
a project. That's a lot of people to be bringing on. I could only imagine how important it is for the 3PL to get it right and for them to be able to deliver on the promises that they made to all of their clients. And so what a huge resource to help them follow through on the promises that they made to their customers and be up and running. And in a new place where maybe they didn't do business before, or may not know the customs, may not know the labor pool as directly, or be connected with as many resources.
Yeah, it's every time I get to one of these projects, it's like your favorite album. Like, you don't know when you first listen to it that it's gonna be your favorite album. First, you find your favorite song, then you like the chorus, then you learn the verses, then you learn all the ad libs for that song, and at some point, you can know every ad lib, every chorus, every verse from the moment the CD goes in till the very end of the disc. So, I mean, the tracks let's say they're like your KPIs or your shift structure, they don't change, right? But if once you're talking about track one, here are the words to that song. When we go to KPI number two, here's what that conversation looks like, and so on and so forth. And then you do that for your respective customers. You have this cadence. And I mean, if you play this album over and over, that is how you can pretty much give a concert, just off of memory because we create that structure and that cadence.
Yeah, I love that. I love the building blocks and the cadence. Yeah, because ultimately, they got to live every day and repeat and and continue with what you had helped set up and had helped taught them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that's one of the things I tell them is I ask them, first of all, I say that there are dumb questions and there are dumb answers, and I ask dumb questions on purpose. I do this on purpose, right? The reason I do this is because I want them to see how simple this really is, right? It seems overwhelming because you get asked a bunch of questions. Well, reality is you get asked about 10 to 15 questions 100 times a day, right? So I asked the same question. I said, okay, today's Friday. what's tomorrow going to be? They said Saturday. I said, it's November. What's next month going to be? They're like December. Said, okay, it's fall. What's the next season? They say it's winter. Why are you asking me these questions? I said, it doesn't change. So if break time is at 9 o'clock today, break time's going to be at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Lunch is going to be at 12. Second break's going to be at 3. The pick rate's going to be this. The pack rate's going to be that. Start time is going to be 6 o'clock. We're going to start talking at 6:05. We're going to stop talking at 6:10. We're going to stretch to 6:12, and everybody's going to be in path by 6:15. We're going to go over our head count by 6:30, and we're going to have all the balance and adjustments done by 7 a.m. It
Yeah.
doesn't change.
Yeah. The sooner you get used to it, the better.
Yeah.
I love that. You have kids, Adrian?
Yeah, I've got 3. I've got an 18-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 10-year-old.
I love it. It sounded like that's like the parenting of the operations world going on right there.
It is. When they were 9, 5, and 1, I had to figure out how to go grocery shopping and manage like their different mindsets because the 9-year-old is like, I'm 9, I'm bigger than 5 and 1. And the 1-year-old, she's going to try to keep up, but she's going to fall behind. And I can't have my kid just disappear in a grocery store. Not good. So I said, how do I do this? No. Okay, I'm still here. So we're going through the grocery store and I say, I need to put the 1-year-old behind me. So I put the 1-year-old behind me, the 5-year-old behind her, and the 9-year-old at the back. And I said, okay, how do I make sure that the 9-year-old doesn't run over the 5-year-old and 1-year-old? So I kind of made them do the step count with me. And I had them count with me in the store. Step 2, 3, 4, step 2, 3, 4, stop. And the people in the grocery store thought it was hilarious. And I
Yes.
said, look, I'm just trying to get through this grocery store in less than an hour and not lose
Yes.
any of my kids. I had to
Yes.
structure it.
I love when parenting happens outside the house. That's the best place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
You
Well,
got any kids?
I do. Yeah. We're 10 and 12, 2 girls. Yeah. So I could totally feel that of like, and not stepping on one another's feet and not causing a problem and not fighting when you're in the middle of it. And yeah, the hits just keep coming. Yeah.
I'll tell you another good story. My daughters, the 14-year-old and 10-year-old, I said, hey, there was a whole bunch of dishes, several dish loads worth of dishes. And I said, wash all these dishes in the dishwasher. So as I'm about to turn on the dishwasher, I'm like, where are all the dishes? So I open it up. They put 4 loads of dishes in the dishwasher at once, and all
Just
the
cramming it
Tupperware.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, so I said, if I turn this on, this is going to burn down the house. So I said, girls, so I started explaining to them. And I remember later on asking them if they could tell when I'm kind of unhappy. And they said, yes. And I said, what do I do? They said, well, you get very quiet. They said, you look over your glasses like this and you start explaining stuff in great detail.
Yeah.
And the first question I asked, I said, okay, you guys haven't been shown how to load a dishwasher. Let me show you how.
Yeah.
And I was so happy that they didn't say like, oh, you get angry, you yell. That is what I need to do to be successful in these projects because you get pushed in with half of the timeline already evaporated.
Yes.
It's very high stress. Everybody wants things done now, 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 now. And you have to have a lot of courage in order to tell people above you, hey, look, we're going to go slower to go faster.
Yeah.
Because if I rush these 50 people out here to do this and half of it's wrong, that's way worse than if I wasted the first 3 hours of the day showing them how to do it correctly and how to resolve it if they did deviate from what was expected. Yeah,
I gotta imagine everyone loves that when you're like, let's just stop, let's slow it
yeah,
down, and let's simplify it. But then,
indeed.
like, you don't miss it, right? Like, you can't miss that step. You can't not understand it. Now you've got a baseline, and now you're like, when I need to recall what it is we're supposed to be doing and what great looks like, I have an example.
Yeah, and I get laughed at a lot for my analogies and examples, but they stick. If they laugh, it's programmed in their head, right? So I
Yes.
say, "Do you know the Big Mac song?" And they say, "Well, I don't like Big Macs." I said, "I didn't ask if you like them. Do you know it?" And I say, "It's two all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun." And I said, "There's only one way to do a Big Mac, and every other way is wrong." There's only one way to do this process, and it's this way. Every other way is wrong. So I show them what to do. Then I have them repeat it back to me. Then I have them train me. And when you train me, I'm going to mess everything up on purpose so I know you know what right looks like. Now, when I walk away, like I'm off the floor for an hour during peak season, and when I go back out there, it's not going to be blown apart because I knew this event was coming. And I said, here are the things that I need to make sure go perfect, at least for an hour, so I can have this podcast with Justin.
Yes, we're grateful for it. I gotta imagine there's some form of partnership when you have a client that you're working for, and how to determine how we're going to make the Big Mac. And that there are some parts of the Big Mac that just like are always made the same, like based on best practice. And then there's like what is unique to the operation, to the culture, to the firm, or to their goals. How do those conversations look when you're like at the very inception of a new project?
So I've seen a mix, right? Where sometimes they have all the instructions, they just need to be trained and facilitated to the team. That's one. Another one is, hey, we just been tribal knowledge. We did a launch. We launched a WMS in September of 2024, and we're going to write the SOPs for them in July of 2025. So we've been doing what we thought was right according to the system before this one, and it may or may not be. But can you go through and actually go through every single process and document what right should look like, and then put that in a format? And then sometimes it's, hey, we have no clue what it should look like at all. So here's what we need done. And it's just pure trial and error. And we move very slowly the first day, which is why I would say the first one is the worst one. And then you'll be surprised within as little as 24 hours how much you learn and how much you progress. First day before we got here, we were doing about 2,800 units a day. And you're like, reference to what? Well, in about a week and a half, we did 18,000 one day, and we still tripped over ourselves to get that 18,000.
Okay.
We had found so many bottlenecks and streamlined so many processes that we were able to 6 times our throughput. And this is VAS is a manual operation. There's no glamour in VAS. It's just, there's no scans. You're peeling a sticker and you're
That
putting
was
it to a,
vast.
that's all I do. That's value added services. So let's say I get my product. We can even go with a Big Mac, right? So let's say I have the McDonald's sign, the menu, all the menu items, right? But the cost of them that will be different in California than they will be in Atlanta versus New York or Seattle. So VAS would be like saying, hey, we're doing McDonald's order boards today. The first one is California. Here are the California prices for all the items. Make sure they match up, pack it up, send it to California. Okay, the next state, then the next state, then the next state, then the next state. So it's a very manual and tedious process.
Yeah, that's like a customizing, or I've seen some people with their product like doing some embroidery that was like, yeah, perhaps not the most creative or fun part of the process, no doubt.
No, it's not at all. So like if you take the salt shaker and the little pepper shaker, what you can buy individually, and then you put them together and wrap them and make them a single selling unit, that would be like a vast project.
Yeah, so you'll get people backing up one step of like have the processes in place all the way and need them trained all the way to like blank slate. Where do
Yeah.
we begin? And then
Yeah.
what's the general scale or size that you would say is your wheelhouse where like you help the most or where like your most of your clients are?
1,000 square feet up to the 1.2, 1.6 million square feet. Uh, Largest place I've been is 2.8 million square feet. Smallest has been about 30,000 square feet, but sweet spot is 500,000 to 1.2.
Because they have enough scale, they have enough resources, they have enough customers to then start to mature or then to start to scale or to perhaps optimize more.
Yep, absolutely.
I love it. And then where do you usually start with these clients?
Where you say, the very first thing you start with is definitely the operations piece, right? So, because I was born in operations, so we're going to get the operations team right first. And before you go out there, first of all, I shouldn't yell at anybody, but before you go out there and say this is wrong, you say, hey, where are the work instructions? Does Justin have work instructions for this? Does he have work instructions for that? We create those. So we take away the excuse of I didn't know. Now, the next thing we move to is I don't care, right? So if somebody doesn't care to work for the company, then I don't care for them to work for the company either. And yes, you can get out of here. And I didn't always have an HR on site. So I do know how to show operators how to hire 640 people in a 9-month time frame by themselves while still running the operation.
Okay, that not insignificant. Yeah, that's a heavy lift.
It is. And so again, it's all building block and cadence. So it's 16 people in one 8-hour day. You pretty much know you're going to hire them. When you go to the grocery store, you know what you're going to get, right? So when you look into the applicant tracking pool, you know exactly who you're going to hire. You call them in, you hire them. 16 people, one 8-hour day. You do that one day each week. And every 2 weeks, you have an orientation of 32 people. And you do that 20 pay periods out of 26. Of course, we would stop doing it by now in November. We don't do it in December. It's too late. Everybody should be in path. And then January, there's no volume. So those are the 6 pay periods we don't do it.
Yeah, got it. It's so wild thinking of like the examples I have where I've helped people set up in areas that they haven't operated before. And it was interesting the whole labor connection of trying to assess if a market has the right population and people and skill levels for what they're looking for. And then what hiring actually looks like versus what they thought it would look like, and it being like an ongoing journey. And so the one I had worked on most recently was in the west side of Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix has been blowing up, but there have been so many DCs all opening up in the same area that there's good and bad like associated with that, like a lot of competing places to go, a lot of places where you have to know what the other people are doing to know you're providing a great environment to attract people. So I got to imagine a lot of places you go are like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Atlanta, Dallas, like all the hot spots that have like a lot of competition or like that are like well-trodden paths or like new emerging markets that like now have a lot of new DCs that have been built. So that's something you're used to dealing with, I imagine.
Yeah, and especially the workforce that knows that if you let them go today, they can go down the street and get a job tomorrow. So it really becomes once you get good talent, how do you retain it? One of the worst questions to be dinged negatively on when I was at Target was, would you take a job with a competitor at the same or lower pay? So if your employees are saying, yeah, I would take a job with a different company at the same pay or lower pay, that means you are doing about the worst job you could possibly do as far as retaining that talent.
Would you do
And then,
anything to get out of here if you could?
yeah, and
Yeah.
and so the other piece to that is that there is a piece included with the wages, the wage transparency, the progression. So if that you're in the industrial real estate space, so we have a warehouse that looks like our entire box between you and me. And there's a wall in between in the middle of this warehouse, and there's tenant A and tenant B under the same roof. Now, if I'm paying my people $12 an hour and you're paying your people $19 an hour, where are most of the applicants going to go? They're going to go to just inside of the warehouse. So for the companies that say, oh, we're struggling, we can't find good people, man, there are so many good people available right now, especially in today's market. And another thing, if you have to get temp workers, there are people that are grossly overqualified that are taking whatever they need to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
As long as you actually know who your people are, you can tap into those skill sets and you're leaving so much money and potential on the table if you treat them just like another temporary worker. So that's probably the worst thing you could do if you do have temp workers is not know their names or their skill sets.
Yeah. Because the temporary worker today might be your star performer tomorrow in training, perhaps, if you do it right.
Yeah, these folks have IT backgrounds. They're going to
You
college
put the
for
glasses on.
accounting
I thought I
degrees.
might get a lecture there for a second. I was starting to get worried.
I had to glare, but yeah, these guys have all kinds of skill sets, and they're not just operators. And I think that would I'm gonna tell you why that makes companies stronger when people promote from the floor. Is because right now, over the next few weeks, people are gonna have all hands on deck. And that's where everybody goes to the floor and helps out no matter who you are in the company. Go get orders out. So now you got people who have never been on the floor. And it's pretty funny because in the first 5 or 10 minutes, they say, how do you guys put up with this? This is so jacked up. And we say, guys, we've been working around this all year, but you guys think we just complain all day, and it really is that bad.
Yes.
Now,
This is
if
a
you,
walk a mile in another person's shoes. Yeah, yeah.
yes. Now, when these people promote from the temps because they have these skill sets and whatnot, and they actually go and they're marketers and advertisers, procurement, transportation, and things like that. If you ever need them to push come to shove back into the warehouse, you already know that they can, have, and will do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like a cross training opportunity.
Yeah, and cross training is probably that's something else. And I'll get to there's bench depth and then there's cross training. There's two, and those are two distinct things. So bench depth is saying, okay, I only have one yard driver per shift. I only need one yard driver, but it would be foolish to have only one person who knows how to drive it. You need to have at least three others, one for vacation, one for calling in, and one for jury duty. You still have that fourth person. They may be terrible compared to the other three, but at least they can get you through the day.
Yes.
Now, that's bench depth. Cross training is where you say, okay, in October, when we got all the Christmas trees in, it was inbound was getting blown out the water and outbound was standing there looking silly. Well, I can call in overtime for inbound, or I could take some of these outbound people and say, hey, go take the stuff off the truck. Now, especially here over the next 2 weeks when the Christmas trees get pushed to the stores, everything's going to be pretty much going outbound, and inbound is going to be standing there looking goofy. So you can either call overtime for just the outbound team, or you can say, hey, inbound team, some of you guys go over there and help put stuff on the truck.
Yes.
Now, that offsets the need for overtime up to a certain extent. And then there is the expectation that there will be mandatory overtime, usually from, depending on which business unit, 2 weeks before Black Friday, all the way up until about 3 or 4 days before Christmas.
Yeah.
And here's exactly how it works, what I've seen. So you have between 26 and 33 days between Thanksgiving and Christmas, depending on when Thanksgiving falls. If it's like the 22nd or 23rd, it's 33. If it's on the 27th or the 28th, it's 26. You get 7 extra days worth of orders to do in that time frame. 7 extra days. And here's how we cover it. The first week, everybody does 2 days of mandatory overtime. The second week, everybody does 2 days of mandatory overtime. The third week, 1 day of mandatory overtime plus voluntary. The fourth week, 1 mandatory day of overtime plus voluntary overtime. And if there is a fifth week, usually you can cover it with just voluntary overtime. And that's the structure.
I love this brings me back to this being your 25th peak. That's what it would make me think of. Yeah.
Yeah, I tell people peak does not have to be chaotic. Peak will be chaotic if you start planning for it in September, which some people say September's a bare minimum. There's nothing wrong with planning for it. I say the best day to plan for peak is the day after peak ends. The second best time to plan for peak is now.
Yes. Yeah. So it never leaves your mind. You know it's
Never.
coming. Yeah. That just goes back to your cadence. You just
Yeah. And so there are about 17 to 18 holidays in a year, and they don't change. This is also a post I do, and you got Mardi Gras, Valentine's Day, Easter, Mother's Day, dads and grads, 4th of July, and it just doesn't stop. And so the lawn and patio or the gardening peak season is in Q1. Swimwear, the grills, the fireworks, their peak season is in Q2, right? So the different events are going to have their peaks throughout the year, which of course the largest peak being in between your three biggest holidays of the year are hands down Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas in the span of about what, 8 weeks, which consequently you really don't get another big holiday after Christmas until pretty much Easter,
Yeah.
which is why Q1 is such a drag. There's no fun holidays. It gets dark at 4:30, right? You have everybody's maxed their credit cards out. It's
Yes.
the holiday hangover.
Yeah.
And what this does in a retail space or warehouse space is I don't need 100% of my footprint anymore,
Yeah.
right? I only need about 60%. And if you do it right, you can put the seasonal stuff in certain sections of the warehouse so that as the season goes on and the customers buy the product, your footprint naturally shrinks. You go down to the lowest amount of volume, even though you have the highest overhead, you have the shortest travel path
Yeah.
because if you have this stuff spread out and your warehouse looks like Swiss cheese, that is going to be financial death by 1,000 cuts.
I love it. That's just the forethought. Yeah. And like dealing with what is predictable or within your control.
It
Yeah.
is. Now, most companies have to do with physical inventory, right?
Yes.
What better time to do it than when you have the most amount of hours and the most amount of hours and the least amount of volume, right? So now you have a budget anyway of hours to do this physical inventory. Best time to do it's in quarter 1. The other reason we talked about that strategy of condensing the footprint is an aisle that is empty is a whole lot easier to count than one that's partially full. And if we're going down, I know how to empty 40% of the warehouse.
It's like the audit path is shortest too. Yeah.
Yes, you have basically you have the budget to count 100% of the floor space, 100% of the locations, but if you know strategically how to prevent 40% of them from having anything in them in the first place, you go to this aisle. This aisle is physically empty. Systematically, what's in it? 3 pallets. Oh, really? Okay, let me see what they are. And later on, you may find an aisle that has 3 extra pallets in it. You say, this is exactly what they are. You plus it in, and now that aisle is reconciled. I know this because I did so well with the capacity management. They asked me, hey, you want to do inventory this year? I said, absolutely not. They said, well, let me ask you this again. Would you like to do inventory this year? And I said, I guess so. So now that I have learned that the hard way, that
Yes.
is my strategy as to I understand why they did it now.
People don't like inventory, right?
I would much rather manage capacity any day of the week than try to manage inventory.
So that caused you to say, how can I try and do as little inventory as possible? What's the best way we could be doing this?
Yeah. So it's when you manage capacity well, you by default manage inventory well, but it doesn't necessarily go the other way because inventory just means how much of it do I have. Capacity is do I have the right amount in the right place at the right time?
You being in a lane where you have a lot of good sized warehouses, I got to imagine you get the variety of warehouse, like material handling systems, warehouse automation systems. Everybody's got the thing that they know, the thing they want to get, the thing that's promised them, or the next capital investment that's on the horizon. How's that changed this conversation?
So there's a couple of buildings, couple of projects, and these are at least 500,000 square feet. There's been no automation. There's been no conveyance. Like we're pallet jacking or forklifting product from one end of the building to the other. No
Okay.
conveyance. But here's what I'll say. What we can normally do is say, what are the expectations? Where are you performing right now? And then we say, okay, that gap in performance, hours times shortfall equates to this many dollars. And what you want cost, this, I'll give an example. We were able to save one company 30 cents per case on 15 million cases a year, $4.5 million. Right. So if you want a software that costs $2 million, and you're like, how am I going to afford this? Well, we can say, okay, here's how we're going to save 30 cents per carton on 15 million cartons, give you $4.5 million. We didn't add headcount, equipment, or technology. And now you can go and get that $2 million piece of technology because this is money you were spending anyway and lost productivity.
Yeah.
So now it's available to actually invest something into your company to enhance it.
Yeah. And then based on like how you pay for it or like when it's due or like how it is implemented or like a financed, I'm sure is like that's all part of that.
Yeah, yeah, that's easiest things is like, for example, these guys had headcount, a projected headcount, a labor headcount of 300, and they were underperforming by 40%. So they were hitting 60% of their expectation, which if you looked at what the headcount was when we got there, the headcount was 420 people, which is exactly a 40% overage according to their budgeted headcount. So we implemented the blocking and tackling, the structure and the cadence to get the head count down to 300 while delivering the same amount of volume. And we said, hey, look, and if you look at it, that was a $4.5 million spend two ways. You had the shortfall. You're paying for $18 million. You were basically getting a $4.5 million shortfall from performance, and you made up for it by paying $4.5 million extra in labor.
Right.
Like, so it was a $9 million swing, but we're just like, hey, we're just gonna count, what we get you back up to where you should have been.
Yes. You save just by like a no longer not knowing how to use that as good as it can. Yeah. I love that part. So would you say that like 80-90% of the DCs you're in are still primarily just the regular pallet racking, forklifts, yeah, pallet jacks, and
They,
yeah,
yeah, they are, and just like you, I mean, say, hey, look, if you're looking for a mezzanine convenience, I know some people. If you need a bigger warehouse, I know Justin, right? If you need a right size warehouse, a smaller warehouse, temporary storage space, long term, that's Justin. And so there's a couple people that are in the robot and tech space, and people say, doesn't the robot and tech kind of, aren't you competing against that? And I said, no, absolutely not, right? First, I'm going to get the most out of your horse, and then if you need to go faster, I'm going to go take you down to the car dealer. But plenty of people who drive cars still own horses.
yeah. There's nobody doesn't have waste, or nobody doesn't have everything 100%. And there's always something new going on, whether it's outside of your control, outside of your four walls, or inside your four walls. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. It's the more and more I delve deeper into this topic and into 3PLs, the more I'm finding like some, not like the old ways are the best, but like there's so much hype in automation, and there's not enough capital. Money's not free flown as much as it was before. So a lot of that hype has to meet reality, and it's not for a lot of people, or it's not the right time for a lot of people. And so all the more reason why we got to get Adrian in there.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you about something that's kind of tried and true. And this is going to get into the case study. What part of the country are you from, Justin?
Southern California.
Southern California. What's the big grocery store out there?
Ralph's, Albertsons. Yeah.
And it's more than one in your zip code, right?
Dude, 5. Yeah.
It's several, right?
Yeah.
So in this one warehouse where there's this thing called dynamic slotting and static slotting, and I personally am a fan of dynamic slotting, and I know that's probably gonna, you know, make some people mad, but okay. Here's why. Static slotting is like having only one Ralph's for all of California. It doesn't matter how big it is, everybody in California trying to go to that one Ralph's will be inefficient. Dynamic sliding is like saying, hey, I have dozens of Ralphs, right? And you can go by the one that's closer to your workplace, or you can go by the one that's closer to your house, closer to your church, closest to the ball game, closest to whatever you're doing, and you can get the same thing. So in a warehouse, if you only have one location out of 1,000,000 square feet where your hottest item is located, then when that item drops, guess where every picker in the warehouse is trying to go?
Yep.
To that one location.
Yep.
So we created zip codes where we said, hey, we want a Ralph's here, 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 and here. So when the hot items dropped, we had 4 different ways that pickers could go and get this product. And depending on, we even took it a level deeper where we said, okay, this Ralph's is going to be closest to these customers that are loaded at these dock doors. So now
Yeah.
we've cut down the travel time. These customers are going to the Ralph's at this dock door, so on and so forth, versus all of the Ralph's was down here in the bottom right corner, and we had to travel all the way up the dock just to get to these set of customers.
And you could have adjacent orders that are often paired together, be in each neighborhood, and so on and so forth.
That's it.
Why wouldn't anyone want to do that, Adrian?
I'm going to try my best to understand a concept that I don't want to understand.
Sure.
And I'm going to say it's kind of like Formula One racing, where they rarely make a pass. It's a big deal to make a pass. And really, it's about lap time. Everybody's just trying to get a better lap time, but rarely are you passing anybody. And so it's very efficient where, okay, I go up in one aisle, I pick the most stuff. And as I keep snaking through, I pick less and less stuff, or I pick lighter stuff. And then at the end, I'm dropping it off as close to where it needs to go out the door. And that's it, right? It's designed for precision, right? But volume isn't always designed for precision. It's designed for volume, right? And if you want to get volume, you need to have multiple outlets for this product to get out of the building. Walmart, we can check out at lawn and patio, jewelry, automotive, electronics, self-checkout, express, and the big boy lanes. So that's how I try to do my warehouse. The pickers are the grocery shoppers, the packers are the checkers, the cashiers, and shipping takes it to your car and puts it in your trunk like they used to do back in the day.
Yeah, you must be wild taking you out on the streets and seeing everybody's retail operation and how they're doing stuff. I'm sure there's stores you won't go to as a result, right? Where you're like, nope, not doing
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Just not worth the squeeze.
We're using up this hour, Adrian, with only a few minutes left. If you wouldn't mind if we touched on just things that are in front of us that you're excited about, whether it's methods, technology, getting this year's peak done is probably perhaps one, or anything else that's like people have been struggling with the tariffs a little bit. That's mixed things up with their buildings and like having confidence to expand. Some people are pumped about like interest rates getting lower and like being able to finance stuff better. Is there anything on the horizon that's related to where you excel that like has caught your attention or that you're excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. Biggest thing was 3 things, and I'll say this quickly. Number 1, for the people, they call me Unc now, which is short for uncle, and I'm 42, and I'm like, "How?" I said, "No, guys, I'm not that old." But a lot of people I'm coming across are in their 20s now, and this is their first warehouse job, and so I'm like, "Wow, I really am starting to show them, the next generation of leaders, the basics and fundamentals of this," right?
Yeah.
That's one for the people piece. Number 2 for the company is getting the departments to align. And when we say, hey, we say we're out of space, but we have 100 million in inventory and 30 million of it is excess or obsolete. So we're doing this off of only 70% of our inventory spend. And if we optimize that, 30 is 42% of 70. So if we actually got the right product mix, we could potentially experience a 42% increase in revenue with the same inventory spend just by having the right inventory. And the third thing is understanding capacity management. So, uh, just because you get a good deal on it, procurement, looking at you, hey, I got a great deal, 10 cents per versus 25 cents. Yeah, but you bought so much that now we're going to spend $1 per unit just to process it, thereby losing money. So I'm very excited about teaching the next generation how to understand excess and obsolete inventory and then how to get the most out of their capacity. And that right there is going to make sure that what's in here exists for another 20 or 40 years and probably long after I'm gone.
Love it. Well, we'll help get it out to another 1,000 people, maybe two, maybe three, maybe 20. We'll see.
Outstanding.
You helped improve me, Adrian. I appreciate you spending the time and really appreciate what you're doing out there.
Hey, thanks again for having me, Justin.
Okay. We'll see you later.
All right, later.